A simple mother mocked for her old car. Hours later, her husband's luxury fleet parked outside. It was just after 7 a.m. when Elena tightened her worn-out scarf around her neck and lifted her sleepy son, Malik, into their dented Honda Civic. The car coughed before starting, as if begging to be left alone. Eleanor whispered a quiet, "Come on, baby, just one more day," like she always did. She drove past shiny SUVs and spotless Teslas, their owners barely glancing at her. She didn't care anymore. Today was Malik's first day at a new school, and that's all that mattered. As she pulled into the circular driveway of Briarwood Academy, a private school full of polished marble floors and children with designer backpacks, heads began to turn. Eleanor felt it immediately, eyes scanning her rusting car, her thrift store sweater, her tired face. She parked quickly, hoping to avoid attention. But the moment she opened her door, a woman in heels and pearls, Cynthia, gave a laugh loud enough to catch others' attention. "Is that a student car or a janitor's?" Cynthia said to her friend, not even bothering to lower her voice. Eleanor met her gaze calmly. "I'm just here to drop my son off." Cynthia smiled in that sharp, fake way. "Of course, we just didn't realize Briarwood was accepting community service applicants." The giggles stung, but Eleanor stayed quiet. She held Malik's hand tighter and walked him to the front gate. A few boys near the lockers pointed at Malik's worn shoes, whispering behind their phones. Eleanor knew the drill. She'd lived enough of these days to count them in breaths, not hours. By 10 a.m., a video had surfaced online. Cynthia's friend had recorded Eleanor stepping out of her old car. The caption read, "When the help thinks she belongs at Briarwood." The post racked up shares quickly, especially among parents. Eleanor found out while refilling the vending machine at the supermarket where she worked part-time. Her manager, Diego, showed her the video on his phone. "You okay?" he asked. She shrugged. "Seen worse." What no one knew, what Eleanor never said, was why she kept that car. It wasn't just about money. That car had once been her husband's before he vanished 3 years ago. No goodbye, no message, just gone. One day they were talking about grocery lists and Malik's school play. The next, his phone was disconnected, his office wiped clean. She'd searched for him everywhere. Police said he probably walked out on them. Friends whispered maybe there was another woman. But deep down, Eleanor never believed that, not fully. That afternoon, she went to pick Malik up. Same car, same whispers. Only this time, something was different. As they walked to the parking lot, students had gathered again, but not just to mock. People were staring, but not at Elena. A convoy of 6 black vehicles had rolled in, smooth and silent like shadows. Bentleys, a Rolls-Royce, even a vintage Aston Martin. The school security looked confused. A tall man in a navy suit stepped out first, followed by 2 others. They didn't look at anyone, just scanned the crowd until they spotted her. "Elena Martinez?" the suited man asked. Her breath caught. "Your husband has requested you be escorted home. He apologizes for the delay." Cynthia's jaw dropped. Phones were out again, recording, zooming in. The moment felt like fiction. Eleanor didn't move at first until Malik squeezed her hand. "Mama, is that Dad's car?" Eleanor blinked. The Aston Martin. It was the same one he had promised to restore before he disappeared. She turned slowly, her voice calm but shaking. "Who sent you?" she asked. The man replied, "Your husband. He's safe, but there's a lot you need to know, and very little time." No one laughed now. Not Cynthia. Not the kids. Not even the parents who had shared the video that morning. As Eleanor stepped into the car with her son, silence fell around them. But inside her, 1,000 questions screamed. Where had he been? Why now? And what secret had been buried with her husband's disappearance? She didn't know it yet, but the fleet outside was only the beginning. The drive home didn't feel real. Malik leaned against her shoulder in the back seat, quietly chewing on the granola bar she kept in her purse. Eleanor stared out the window, watching familiar roads blur past in luxury-tinted silence. No one spoke. The man in the front, who had introduced himself only as Cole, kept his eyes forward, answering none of her questions. "Is he okay?" she finally asked. "He's alive," Cole said, "but that's not the full story." Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, demand answers, but something about the man's voice told her to wait. He wasn't just some chauffeur. His knuckles were scarred, and she noticed a small earpiece in his right ear. Security detail. High level. They didn't drive to her apartment. They passed it. They didn't go to her sister's place, where she sometimes dropped Malik when she worked late. Instead, they headed to the edge of the city, to an old part of town that had long been forgotten by developers. When the car finally stopped, she saw it. A crumbling warehouse surrounded by tall fencing and cameras that quietly followed them. "Where are we?" Eleanor whispered. Cole turned around. "Somewhere safe. You're about to see things that might not make sense at first." The warehouse door slid open automatically. Inside was nothing like what she expected. It wasn't dusty or broken down. It was a fully operational command center. Screens lit up the walls. People in suits moved briskly between desks. And in the center, as if time had cracked open, stood Adrian, her husband. He looked thinner, sharper, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. But his eyes, those tired, stormy eyes, locked onto hers and didn't move. "Eleanor?" he said softly. She froze. Malik let go of her hand and ran to him, wrapping his arms around his waist. Adrian hugged him tightly, but his eyes stayed on her. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant to disappear, but they gave me no choice." She walked forward slowly. "They? I couldn't tell you. Not back then. Not when they were watching. But now it's too big to hide." Eleanor looked around. Monitors showed satellite images, news feeds, stock movements, encrypted messages. "What is this?" Adrian motioned for her to sit. "Do you remember that land in Nevada my grandfather left us? The one we thought was worthless?" "Yeah," she said, her voice low. "You said it was full of dust and dead cows." He gave a half smile. "Turns out it sits on a vein of lithium worth billions. The government found out before I did. When I tried to claim it, they buried the records, shut down my accounts, and tried to pin a fraud case on me. I had to go underground." She couldn't breathe. "All this time, you were running?" "Fighting," he corrected. "Gathering proof, building leverage. I've been waiting for the right moment to come back. But now they're getting desperate. They know I have what they tried to steal. And you, Eleanor, you've been their blind spot. They thought you were just a single mother with an old car and no clue. But you still have the original land deed, don't you?" She blinked. "Yeah, it's in my kitchen drawer, under the spoons." "That's the last unaltered copy, and they're coming for it." She looked at Malik, asleep now in Adrian's lap. "So what happens now?" Adrian leaned forward, serious. "We go public, but we need the right moment. One wrong move and they'll erase us for good. That's why you need to go back tomorrow. Act normal. Let them laugh at the car. Let them post their videos. Because when the truth drops, it has to hit so loud the whole country hears it." Suddenly, alarms blared. A red light flashed across the monitors. Cole ruched back inside. "They found the warehouse signal. We've got 6 minutes." Adrian stood. "Elena, we're not victims anymore, but everything depends on what you do next." She didn't flinch. "What do you need me to do?" He handed her a flash drive. "Expose them, but not yet. Wait until they think they've won." The doors began to open. Helicopter blades thumped in the distance. As the team scattered into evacuation mode, Eleanor slipped the drive into her jacket pocket. Tomorrow, she'd get back into her old car. She'd wave to Cynthia. She'd walk into the school like nothing had changed. And no one, not even Cynthia with her pearl earrings, would see the storm coming. The next morning, Eleanor's alarm went off at 5 a.m., but she'd already been awake for hours. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the flash drive in her palm. It looked harmless, plastic and metal, but it buzzed in her hand like it held a living thing. Down the hall, Malik snored softly. She slipped the drive into the lining of her coat, right next to the stitched-in pocket she'd made months ago for hiding grocery coupons. Now it held something worth more than any of them could imagine. By 7:45, she was back in the old Honda, same coughing engine, same cracked rearview mirror. But this time, her hands didn't tremble on the wheel. At Briarwood, the same cluster of moms stood near the fountain. Cynthia was in a cherry-red coat and huge sunglasses, sipping an oat milk latte like she owned the school. The moment she spotted Elena, her lips curled. "Well, look who's back," she smirked. "I thought yesterday's circus might have scared you off." Elena smiled. "Oh, I'm just here to drop Malik. Some of us don't have time for costume parties in the morning." Cynthia's friend gasped. "Excuse me." But Elena had already walked away. Inside the school office, the secretary gave her a strange look. "You had some visitors yesterday, men in suits, said they were your husband's associates." Elena nodded. "They left already, just clearing up an old family matter." The secretary hesitated, then handed her a sealed envelope. "They also left this, said to give it to you directly." Elena took it calmly, but her pulse jumped. She waited until she was in her car to open it. Inside were two things: a note in Adrian's handwriting, "They're watching the school. Smile, look dumb," and a photo of a judge. Elena's stomach turned. It was Judge Gerald Whitmore, the same man who had laughed in her face 2 years ago when she begged for an extension on her rent eviction. The same man who called her financially irresponsible while she stood there with Malik wheezing from untreated asthma. And now, apparently, the judge was linked to the same land cover-up that forced Adrian into hiding. She didn't need more motivation. At 2:30, she picked Malik up. A black car followed them halfway home before vanishing at a stoplight. Eleanor pretended not to notice. That night, she locked her door, put on headphones for Malik, and turned on her laptop. The flash drive opened with a password-protected folder. She typed in the code Adrian had whispered in her ear before the warehouse was raided. Our Wedding 2008 inside were folders, documents, call logs, transaction histories, names, dates, maps. And then, at the bottom, a video file titled Whitmore and Sons, June 14th, recording. She clicked it. The footage was grainy but clear enough. A hidden camera, maybe inside a briefcase or lapel pin. Judge Whitmore sat across from a man Eleanor didn't recognize, laughing. "They think we'll let some Latina with a grocery job win this," Whitmore said. "The husband's gone. She's nothing. Let her rot in Section 8. Eleanor froze. "You got the land deed buried?" the man asked. "Burned the state copy. Hers is probably in a junk drawer with ketchup packets." They both laughed. Eleanor sat back, shaking. Her mouth went dry, but her mind was clear. This was it. This was the thing. The voice, the date, the words. Proof of racism, corruption, and the cover-up that ruined her family's life. But uploading it could get her killed. Adrian had warned her, once this went live, there'd be no going back. That's when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your husband's team failed. He's missing again, and we're watching you now." Eleanor stared at the screen. Her hand tightened around the mouse. She didn't know where Adrian was. She didn't know who sent the message, but she knew what she had to do next. She took a breath and began preparing the video for upload to the school's parent portal, to social media, to every news outlet she could reach. If they wanted a silent mother with an old car, they had picked the wrong woman. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She spent the dark hours in front of her laptop, eyes burning as she drafted captions, double-checked files, and masked her IP through free VPNs Adrian had shown her years ago. Every few minutes, she peeked through the window blinds. A white van parked down the street hadn't moved since 10 p.m. By 4 a.m., the video was ready. But instead of uploading it straight to the news, she used something better: parent gossip. She posted the video anonymously in the Briarwood Parent Council group on Facebook. She knew exactly how these women worked: addicted to tea, fake charity work, and digital takedowns. One line in the caption was all it took. What your kids won't learn in civics: how Briarwood's judge friend talks when the cameras are off. Check the date, check the face. She hit upload. Then, without a second thought, sent the video to 25 local reporters, one YouTube lawyer, and a podcast host known for torching corrupt politicians. By 7 a.m., her phone exploded. Notifications poured in. The video had already reached 20,000 views, then 50,000. By 8:15, it was trending number 4 on Twitter. Whitmore hadn't even brushed his teeth before a mic was shoved in his face outside his home. His PR team shoved reporters aside, but the damage was already done. Eleanor sat in her kitchen, feeding Malik cereal, her phone vibrating non-stop on the counter. But it wasn't over. At 9:07, the doorbell rang. Eleanor froze. Malik looked up, spoon halfway to his mouth. "Mom?" "Stay here," she whispered. She checked the peephole. Not the police, not the media. Cynthia, wearing sunglasses and holding an apology basket full of expensive chocolates, imported soaps, and some ridiculous candle that probably cost more than Elena's rent. Elena opened the door slowly. "Hey," Cynthia said with a shaky smile. "So, this is awkward." Elena leaned against the door. "Go on." "I didn't know about all that stuff. I mean, the judge, crazy, right? And you, wow, Eleanor, honestly, you're kind of incredible." Eleanor blinked. "Is that why you called me a maid yesterday?" Cynthia winced. It was a joke. Bad taste. "But hey, I wanted to invite you to this charity brunch. The head of admissions will be there." "I thought it might be good, exposure for Malik." Eleanor stared at her. "You mean the brunch you said I'd never be good enough to attend?" Cynthia laughed nervously. "That was before I knew who you were." Something in Eleanor snapped into place. Calm, cold, clear. "I haven't changed, Cynthia. You just found out what I was hiding." Cynthia swallowed, suddenly unsure. "So, you're not coming?" Eleanor smiled. "Oh, I'll come, but I'll be bringing more than just my old car." She closed the door. Cynthia stood outside for a few seconds, then turned and left, her heels wobbling on the steps. Later that day, Eleanor received another text, this one from a blocked number, but it wasn't a threat, just a photo, grainy but unmistakable. Adrian, alive. His face bruised, tied to a chair in some industrial room, but his eyes were defiant. Underneath the photo, the message read, "Upload that second file and he dies." Eleanor sat down, her knees shaking. There was a second file, a folder Adrian had told her not to open unless things got worse. Inside was a list of names: investors, senators, CEOs. People whose wealth was tied to the lithium land, people who had paid to make Adrian disappear, people powerful enough to erase entire lives. Now she had a choice: release the rest and risk Adrian's life, or stay silent and let these monsters bury everything again. Then she noticed something else, a tiny flicker on one of the files, a timestamp. One of the meetings from the folder was happening tomorrow. At the brunch Cynthia had just invited her to, and someone important, someone on that list, would be there. Eleanor looked at her reflection in the microwave door. Her face looked older than yesterday, stronger too. If they wanted her silent, they should have picked someone who didn't know how to listen, because tomorrow she was going to that brunch, and she wasn't going to stay quiet. The morning of the brunch, Eleanor dressed with steady hands. No dramatic makeover, no borrowed luxury. Just her own fitted black dress, the same one she'd worn to job interviews and parent-teacher meetings. Clean, sharp, respectable enough to pass, plain enough to be underestimated. She dropped Malik off early with her sister, whispering, "If I'm not back by 5, go to Adrian's guy." "Cole, he'll know what to do." Her sister didn't ask questions, she just hugged her tight. At 11 a.m., Eleanor arrived at the estate where the brunch was held, a sprawling, gated mansion in Westwood owned by some retired pharmaceutical tycoon. The parking area looked like a luxury car dealership. Bentleys, Teslas, one matte black Rolls-Royce. Eleanor's Honda stood out like a stray mutt among purebreds, and she liked it that way. Cynthia greeted her near the entrance, glowing with nervous energy. "You made it," she chirped, air-kissing the air beside Elena's cheek. "They're all inside. You look great." "Thanks," Elena said flatly, scanning the crowd. "So where's this head of admissions?" "Oh, somewhere near the back. But listen, more importantly, Senator Darnell's here." Cynthia lowered her voice. "He's one of the people in charge of the land zoning stuff. Major power player. He never comes to these things. I think he's looking for you." Elena's stomach clenched. That was the name. Darnell. One of the names from the flash drive. The same man who signed off on the fake federal documents that erased her husband's legal claim. She made her way to the rear garden, where laughter floated between champagne clinks. The senator stood beneath a large umbrella, surrounded by donors and smug smiles. Their eyes locked the moment she approached. "Eleanor Ramirez," he said smoothly, as if they were old friends. "I've heard a lot about you." She kept her voice calm. "Wish I could say the same," he laughed. "Let's talk somewhere quieter." She followed him inside, down a hallway away from the noise. He opened a small office door and gestured for her to enter. She did, but left the door slightly open. He didn't notice. "Eleanor," he began, leaning on the desk, "let's stop playing games. You've done something impressive, reckless, but impressive. I'm here to offer you a way out." She tilted her head. "A way out of what?" He smiled like a man used to winning. "We know where Adrian is. He's alive, but running out of time. Release the second file and you lose him forever. But if you delete it, burn it, whatever, I'll make sure he comes home, quietly. No more chasing shadows, no more threats. Just a clean end, for your family." "And what do you get in return?" He stepped closer. "The world keeps spinning the way it's always spun." She looked down, like she was thinking it over. But her heart was thudding against her ribs, because while he spoke, her smartwatch was transmitting everything, audio, timestamp, location, straight to Cole's backup drive. She smiled politely. "Sounds generous." "It is," he replied, "more generous than you deserve." Before he could say anything else, she leaned forward and whispered, "You ever think maybe I'm not the scared little mother you think I am?" He blinked, caught off guard. Then a phone buzzed. "Hi." He picked it up, stepped aside. As he listened, his face paled.